When my great-grandpa retired, he divided his property among all his kids. When he did this, it was way outside the city limits. My grandmother only had one kid, my dad, and I'm her only grandchild. My dad gave me the land. My piece is the biggest. We're also close enough now for city water and power. Some of the land has been sold to developers. My uncle subdivided his portion into acreages. He kept one and gave each of his kids a plot. My cousin has spent 10 years building his dream home up the hill from my cabin. I bought an old one-room schoolhouse and moved it onto my land. I love it. I'll retire there someday, but it needs work. My cousin has been bugging me to clear some of my wood lot. It blocks his view of the valley. He chose that lot. I don't know why he would pick a location with an obstructed view. My wife and I live and work in the city. We only go to the cabin a few times a year. My cousin lives in his home. He and his kids constantly throw parties there. We go if we're out at the cabin, but mostly we like having the privacy of the woodlot between us. My cousin didn't. He chopped down 10 of the tallest trees between our properties. All of them were on my side of the fence. When I got out there, I first saw the missing trees. I immediately checked my trail cameras. I had a video of him and his sons doing it. I went over and asked him what the heck had happened. He said the trees were diseased and he did me a favor. I told him I wanted to look at the wood. The trunks were gone and he only had many branches. I called a tree guy from the university to come and look at the stumps, and he told me the trees were fine and that tree theft was a big deal. I told my cousin that he had to do something or I would go to the cops. He said to go ahead, so I did. I also called a lawyer who specializes in tree law. I didn't even know that was a thing. Each tree was worth $50,000. My cousin has gone crazy since he was served. The cops tracked down the trunks. They actually used DNA to identify my logs. The company that bought them agreed to give me the money from the trees and testify against him if I didn't charge them. My uncle and my dad came to talk to me. My cousin doesn't have the money. He would have to sell his house. If he gets a criminal conviction, it will affect his job. We came to an agreement. My uncle gave me one of his undeveloped lots and some money. I dropped the charges against my cousin. My family is divided. On the one hand, he stole my property. On the other, I took money from my uncle in return for not making my cousin homeless. We planted new trees, but they will take a long time to compensate for the old ones. My cousins are furious that I took money that was part of their inheritance, but they're madder at their idiot brother than they are at me. My dad said I shouldn't have involved the law in a family dispute. Am I the idiot? I wouldn't call the destruction of $500,000 worth of property a family dispute. You are not the idiot. Your cousin did something he knew you had said no to and then lied about it. You did the right thing. His father should take what he had to pay for his screw-up out of his share of the inheritance. He needs to pay for what he did one way or another and not have daddy pay. The cousin didn't even offer OP the money from selling the wood. Even if you weren't considering the replacement cost, astronomical for mature trees, the lumber theft alone would constitute a felony. That's why the lumber company was quick to settle. They were in possession of stolen goods worth a lot of money. Your dad is wrong. Your cousin not providing food to Thanksgiving gatherings is a family issue. Stealing and selling someone else's property is a legal and criminal issue. $500,000 is no joke. Your cousin seems to have gotten away with it. His father and others paid for his arrogance and entitlement. It's a shame when family members don't allow the consequences to happen to protect their precious entitled offspring, as they don't learn from their actions if they're not punished. Some of the most significant crimes against people are done by their family, their relatives. So yes, you do involve the law. It's the only way they learn their lesson. My fiancé proposed 3 months ago. It was a beautiful, intimate proposal, and I love the idea of telling our future kids about his proposal. I was really excited to plan my wedding. I work in the events industry, and this sort of thing is my passion. My fiancé has ADHD and finds planning very boring. His default response is, "Whatever you want." So I've had full creative freedom, but I'm a little sad he didn't contribute to anything, not even the colour scheme. My fiancé and our friends were talking about the wedding. I was telling them some of my plans to cut costs down, and my friend made a joke that it was a good thing my fiancé locked me down because I was a professional. My fiancé joked that he didn't lock me down, I locked him up. He said he was trying to enjoy his last days of freedom before I trapped him in the marriage. I felt really upset that he didn't acknowledge my hard work in planning the wedding, and because he joked that I was trapping him into marriage and that I pushed him into getting married. I decided we should call off the wedding for now. He wasn't interested in getting married, and I don't want to marry someone who doesn't enthusiastically want to get married. I talked to my fiancé and said I would call off the wedding plans and we could re-evaluate if he wanted to get married or even stay in this relationship. We have yet to send out RSVPs or book too many vendors, so I want to call it off before it becomes an even more expensive mistake. He was very upset that I called off the wedding and said he was just joking. He said it was normal to joke about this. Am I the idiot? Edit, I've talked with him about his lack of enthusiasm. I don't even need him to take the initiative, but an opinion would be nice. He said he doesn't care about the details at all. I let it go after feeling like I was nagging him to have an opinion. The joke made me realize that he probably doesn't want to get married. That's where his lack of enthusiasm comes from. We're early into wedding planning and I want to call it off because weddings are expensive and I'm not sinking more of my money into uncertainty. Figuring out whether he wants to get married will take time, and time is money. I can work with him on figuring that out, but can't keep a wedding timeline with that. Not the idiot. You're smarter than me. My ex made this joke and I laughed it off. I definitely was the one who got trapped. Run. It's basically negging. This will become boiling the frog and further push your boundaries and sense of self. You're so right about the negging. And notice how he said it right when someone else complimented her. The person essentially said, she is a desirable partner, and what he heard was, she is the desirable one in the relationship. He immediately turned around and said, no, I can be the only desirable one in the relationship. My fiancé has ADHD and finds planning very boring. His default response is, whatever you want. This is not ADHD. This is laziness and weaponized incompetence. Honey, please don't let him convince you he was just joking. You deserve a life full of love and a partner who contributes meaningfully to that. You deserve a partner who values your contributions and gets excited about your plans. You deserve someone who lifts you up. Someone excited to spend the rest of their life with you. A good therapist can help determine if this relationship truly serves your needs or not. Is it a good relationship because you make it work? Trust your gut. My dad put me, a teen male, in therapy last year. I didn't want to go, but he told me it was something he felt I needed, and it was something his wife suggested, and because she's a teacher, she'd know. Therapy is supposed to be just the therapist and me. The actual appointments are. I even liked the therapist. We talked a lot, and I was honest and did the homework they set for me. Something I didn't know was the therapist was telling my dad everything I said to them. I found out 3 weeks ago. I had an appointment on Tuesday and things were normal. Then Wednesday, my dad got home late from work like he normally does once or twice a week, and he was in a crappy mood. He glared at me for about an hour and even scolded me for going to my room when my toddler half-sister started fussing. He followed me up to my room about 30 minutes later and he brought up stuff I'd said in therapy. So I figured out pretty quick that the reason my dad wanted me to go to therapy is that we're not the picture-perfect blended family. I don't choose to spend time with my 2 half-siblings, both toddlers. The therapist asked questions about my feelings about my mom, who died, my dad remarrying, his wife and the kids. I even had homework surrounding that. However, 3 weeks ago, during that appointment, I admitted that I said half-siblings because I know they are technically, but I don't love them or really think about them as my siblings or real siblings. This was the stuff my dad was mad about. He said saying I don't love my siblings is out-of-this-world cruelty or something like that. He told me I'd begged for siblings when my mom was alive, and now that I have them, I don't give a damn because we have different moms. That it's crappy because it's not his fault mom died and he lost her too, and the kids don't deserve to grow up with an unloving sibling or whatever. Dad told me therapy was meant to help me work through the mental block by letting them in, but he was convinced I just didn't care about trying, and I didn't feel bad. I asked him how the heck he knew about all that. He told me he and the therapist talk after every appointment. He talks about it with his wife after he discusses stuff with the therapist. He also told me his wife might not be my mom, but to say I don't really care about her either was a hurtful thing to say out loud too. He told me he let that go because she's an adult and can handle it, and he thought that could change with time. But he was very clear. He thought my not loving my half-siblings was unbelievably crappy and made me the kind of person who can never be good. I was angry that the stuff I was saying was repeated right back to my dad and that nothing I said would be kept from him. So I went to the appointments because I didn't feel like I could say no without things getting bad, but I don't talk now. My dad and his wife are angrier because I'm wasting the money. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. It would help if you told the therapist why you are no longer engaging and they have betrayed your trust. Tell them that this was a breach of trust and confidentiality. You could even report the therapist to their professional body about this. But I wonder whether she's actually a therapist or whether she's a friend of the dad or stepmom. Your dad should not be privy to your sessions. Depending on the state, OP is a teen and still a kid, so in most states, legal guardians have full access to records and patient notes. Not saying it isn't crappy for the therapist to tell dad and stepmom what was said, but totally legal in most places. When I had to put my son in therapy, I was told that I could have access to the session notes because I was his legal guardian while he was under 18. Still, they would prefer I left it alone. I left it alone and didn't discuss it unless my child told me about it. That's because you're a decent person who actually had your kid's best interests at heart. The dad doesn't understand that the only reason he has this wife and these 2 children is because OP's mother died. That OP would rather have his mother back than accept this new family. OP, I am so angry on your behalf. That is a significant breach of trust by all the adults. It's like reading your diary. Your private thoughts are all your own at this point in your life. My sister, who recently moved overseas for work with her family, got very angry when my dad booked a flight to visit them in a few months without telling her until after he had made the booking. She said it was rude and disrespectful to do that, especially when she previously told our family not to book flights to visit her without first giving her the heads up. This was as recently as a couple of months ago when I'd also made a booking for my own family to fly over to visit on our holiday without telling her until after we'd made our plans and booked our flights. I think she's just being difficult and should live in the moment. I think it's a nice surprise to just make our plans and tell her. Still, she says it's rude and disrespectful and assumes that she will now need to organise her own plans with work and her own holiday leave around us when we visit. There was also an incident where she and her husband booked a flight to visit our family, but we'd forgotten about it and booked a trip for my family and our parents. So there was no family in town for her to visit when her flight was booked. Am I the idiot for booking flights to visit my sister overseas without telling her first? How damn out of touch can you possibly be? Apparently, very. You are the idiot. It is rude and very disrespectful to do this. It's selfish of you to assume they would be fine with this. You've made a decision that affects them and didn't even have the courtesy to ask. It's selfish. It's rude. It's disrespectful. They've already told you they don't like this and find this behaviour unacceptable, yet you still did it again anyway. Ridiculously rude and entitled. The cherry on top is that your previous actions, while unrelated to this situation, are just added to confirm you are a selfish idiot. Dude, your sister's life doesn't revolve around your schedule, and it's not fair to expect her to drop everything to accommodate your last-minute plans. She has her own work and personal commitments to manage, and it's not reasonable to assume that she'll be available whenever you decide to visit. She deserves an apology and a change in your behaviour. People have their lives and do not live to entertain you. I, a male teen, was a product of an affair. My mom cheated on her husband, my brother's dad, which caused their divorce. My brother, 30, and I had a good relationship, but his relationship with our mom wasn't okay. The problem started when I was around 11 and my mom was diagnosed with lung cancer. My mom and I were poor and we didn't really have any insurance, so she wasn't able to afford treatment. Over time, she was getting progressively worse. When I was 13, I decided to ask my brother if he could help pay for our mom's treatment because we couldn't afford it, and he and his dad are very well off. However, he refused. By the time I was 14, I had asked about 5 times already because I was desperate and didn't want to lose my mom. The last time I asked my brother for help, he yelled at me and told me to stop asking him for money because he wasn't going to give me a dime and our mom would be the last person he'd help. After my brother said that, my relationship with him started to deteriorate, and 3 months later, my mom died. I had to live with my aunt as she gained custody of me. After the funeral, I completely decided to stop having a relationship with my brother altogether. My aunt is his aunt, so it's kind of tricky to avoid him altogether, but I try my best. He's been trying to come over to my aunt's place more often and to communicate with me, but I've always just locked myself in my room until he left. The problem was today, my aunt decided to hand me her phone and told me my brother wanted to talk to me. Usually when she does this, I just hang up the phone on him, but I guess she knew what I was about to do and told me to please just talk to him. And so I just decided to hear what he wanted to say just for her. He basically asked me how I was doing and wanted to tell me that he looked forward to seeing me graduate this year. He also asked if he could potentially take me on a trip for my birthday, April the 3rd, because it falls on spring break. I told him no thanks and that I prefer he didn't come to my graduation, and I hung up. He tried calling my aunt again, but I said I didn't want to talk to him. My aunt said okay and didn't try to get me to talk to him again. After about an hour or so, my aunt came into my room crying and told me that I should rebuild a connection with him and that our mom wouldn't want us to act this way towards each other. I told my aunt that I was sorry, but I didn't think our relationship could go back to the way it used to be, and I only tolerated him because of her. When I said that, she just told me she understood and left me alone, but I heard her go into her room and I could hear her crying through the walls and I didn't know what to do. I know I can't stop him from coming to my graduation if I wanted to, but I just don't want him there at all. Am I the idiot? So, let me get this straight. You both share the same mom. She cheated on his dad when your brother was still relatively young. You're the product of a different dad, so where is your dad in all of this mess? Either way, both of you are not the idiot. Your mother's lung cancer may have progressed way too far in advance after 2 years. He is not obligated to help and he may not be as well off as you think. Good luck and I hope you both heal from this. I'm going with no idiots here. You have a right to your feelings. So does your brother. I guess the treatment wouldn't have saved her, but I understand. She didn't get the chance to try. It's just a crappy situation that was honestly placed upon you and your brother by your mother. I'm so sorry you bore witness to your mother's suffering. That is more than any child should be burdened with. As for now, however, your feelings are valid. You can choose who you want to be at graduation. This is your call.